Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Marie. It's my pleasure to be your moderator for today's webinar. On behalf of Endeavor, I would like to extend a warm welcome to you all to Navigating the Digital Landscape, a paradigm shift in business reporting. We are especially grateful for your presence today, as we know you could be spending your time with your loved ones or enjoying other holiday festivities. Your presence here shows that you are committed to make sure that your business is better, and we truly are honored. So now, before we begin, I would like to go over some housekeeping rules. All participants will be muted and your cameras are being turned off throughout the webinar to enable our speakers to present without interruption and, of course, for your privacy. And if you get disconnected, please log off and log back in, and you'll be in the webinar room once again. Feel free to submit any questions that you may have during the presentation using the Q&A feature, which is conveniently located on your webinar screen. And please be reminded that this session is being recorded and will be sent to the registered attendees afterwards. And now, it's my pleasure to introduce our distinguished speaker. Joining us today, we have Rob Sheldrick, Head of Mid-Market Enterprise Endeavor. Rob is actually a veteran of wholesale distribution and supply chain industries. So having started his career with Australia's largest food producing company. So over the course of 20 years, he became an internal business transformation and modernization specialist, eventually moving on to the delivery of modernization and transformation for companies in Australia. Specifically, Rob has lived experience leading business intelligence teams, driving strategic and technology direction around standardization, automation, and reusability of reporting and analytical solutions. He's really passionate about working with businesses to ensure that they are future fit and ready to exploit leading edge business practices and technology that is yet to come. So without much further delay, please welcome Rob.
Thanks, Marie, and thanks for hosting us.
Sure. You're welcome. Okay, for our agenda.
My screen is immediately not working. There we go. Sorry. Back on there. So we've got a bit of an agenda to get through, so we might just jump straight in to the conversation. But essentially, we're going to cover off what I've seen out in the real world around reporting and the evolution associated with it, and what I think you need to be covering off on your side. So back to you, Marie.
All right, thank you, Rob. So it's really a pleasure to have you back. So is this our fifth session on business management? And I really wanted to know how to ensure your business is future fit.
Yeah, thank you for that. So it is our fifth session, and there are some people attending today that have been through the past four sessions for us. So the drive around this series has been to talk about the various things that organisations we think need to be doing to help their business go forward and be what we call a future fit business. Now, future fit is not our terminology. It's Forster have come up with that globally. But the drivers behind that is that we've found that businesses that do set themselves up to be future fit, ready for what's happening in the world and what's likely to happen in the future, tend to grow at about 3.2 times faster than other peers in their industry set and so on. And so what we've done to date is a number of sessions to talk about the steps that we have seen. So, for those that are joining today and haven't seen the other videos, please do go jump on our website and or visit our YouTube channel at Endeavor IT and have a look at those, because I think they'll add to the conversation. So let's kick off with talking about traditional reporting, because that's what we're going to be putting a juxtaposition around. So traditional business reporting has typically involved generating some sort of structured report, a formal document, or even an in-system report that has information about the company's performance, the financial health, and typically, there's some sort of metric around that. But it's a pretty static thing. It's periodic. You run it quarterly, weekly, maybe at best, annually, and so on. And it comes with a predefined, locked-in format as a rule. So there's some exceptions there. But typically the biggest thing about it is it's backwards looking. So it's something that tells you where you've been and how you performed from a backwards view point of view. Does that make sense, Marie?
I agree, Rob. All right. So, Rob, Say I've been running my business for years, and reports I've been asking for from my finance team haven't really changed much over the years. So what's wrong with my reports?
So look, there's nothing wrong with your reports. In fact, if we just touch on some examples around what I would call static reports or traditional reports as well. You know, some of these haven't changed and do not need to change. So if you're talking about a P&L and so on, you still need a P&L and you largely need it in the same format you've ever had. What may have changed, though, is that we see more chart of account structures that are minimized, and there's use of things like sub-accounts or attributes that are brought into play to impose that sort of informational change that happens. So we do see that these P&L reports in ERP systems, or good ones at least, tend to sort of be reflecting, changes without actually having to change the structure. So there's some good stuff out there. But if you look at some of the sales reports as an example, and whilst they're good, they tend to have been set by somebody maybe 2-3 years ago, maybe 2 months ago. And what's happening is that people then get locked into a view of their business, and it doesn't move around to show them what's changed. So the conversation today is not that, you don't want traditional reports or you don't want static reports. You do. We want to layer better things on top of that to give you a better understanding of the business. So just taking that forward and talking about some of the limitations we see with static reports in organizations, particularly those that are running multiple systems, is they're time consuming. Some people may have a standard report just pops out as a rule, but often what we actually see is people are going to go find manual elements to add in there. And particularly as the business evolves, the report might not have, and people have to find new ways to gather that information. So there's a nature of it's time consuming both in the cost side of that conversation and also in the lag that it might take you 2 weeks to get the right information together across 3 or 4 different systems or whatever it may be. They tend to be very static and inflexible. So you send me a standard report or I look at a standard report in a system, it's difficult for me to actually manipulate it too much. I might be able to run a bit of dimensions at the start, just show me this sales office, only this region or whatever else, but I'm sort of locked into the format that's there. So as a user, it's not very friendly for what I want. There's a concern around the accuracy of the information coming through. So we're not saying these reports aren't tested at some point as being accurate, but over time, they tend to sort of have some other things thrown at them that help them actually lose some of that accuracy, whether that be, again, consolidating various bits of information or getting information from different sources that see, maybe the same name for something is used differently in those places. So there's an issue that can come up around integrity. And as I said, just being able to play with it and actually be interactive with it and change the comment or maybe move your rows columns or drill into something. Typically some of these reports don't even have drillability. Some do though, so I want to be careful that I'm not slagging off the actual reporting. And then finally, the absolute issue for me around standard reports traditionally is the lack of real time. That they are focused on looking backwards at where the business has been and performance. So you tend to not have an immediacy to that. And as you'll see as we go further through here, Marie, one of the drivers is having immediacy. So what I'd like to do now to position a bit of a platform for the conversation is just to introduce a view of evolution of reports and where we've come to and why I think this is an important conversation. So the first part is, businesses years ago had all this data available, or some data, depending on the business we're talking about. They recognise if I cleaned that data up and brought some commonality to it, some categorization or whatever else, I could see certain things about the business. And then they use that cleansed data to create standard reports that, every week I had a P&L or every month I had a P&L look like this, etc. That then moved in to an ad hoc nature where users or individuals could run that report month to date or something like that. But again, still, based on information in the past. And then finally, businesses were able to introduce query drill down concepts that allowed us to look inside the reports a little bit. But all of that is still a backward conversation. It's looking to what happened in the last week, the last month, the last year, and so on. So what we've seen develop over time, and some of these are quite a while ago, is businesses started to getting closer to when events took place. So alerts, so it needs to be real time. telling you that something has happened in your business that you need to react to. And that's the power of business alerts or the conditional responses. It's saying that, I've got an order and the line item 7 cannot be fulfilled, and it tells you. And the idea is getting that as close to the event as possible means you've got a chance to actually make a change to that event or impact that, rather than, again, standard reports that might have told you the next day that we had 5 lines that weren't able to be delivered. What can you do about that? Well, it depends on businesses and your industry set. But for some people, it's ring the customer up and say, I've got an alternative. You wanted a size 7, I do have a size 8. Will that work? So probably buying clothing, maybe not. But if you're talking about food and it's a extra size of some sort of food portion, then maybe yes. So we're looking to do that. Then the big power then became the interactive dashboards that allowed you to do a few things, visualize the data in a different ways, but also put a lot of data in one space in front of you to tell you what's going on in the business. Again, the power is in the real-time bit. So, for those businesses that have bought a third-party solution, I'm not saying that's the wrong thing to do, but if it's giving you a view a day or 2 days later, it's not where we ideally see businesses wanting to be. Businesses are about having a cockpit, flying the plane and seeing what's happening and reacting as you go through. And importantly, and I'll come to this later on, pushing that reaction time back to more people, trusting your users within the business that can make a difference to actually do it, rather than having just the executive or management team be aware. And then following the line of evolution, what we've then seen is the power of statistical analysis, being able to understand more about the why, rather than just report what's happened. You can drill in and get some information based on statistical analysis. Then we'll touch on this a little bit today. We drive into forecasting, being able to look forward and gain insights into the business that allow you to decide where to put your resources. Really important point, and I'll probably make this again later on. This is not just about coming up with a forecast number for FY24, etc. This is about the stuff underneath that allows you to understand your resource requirements, your supply needs, etc., to drive the business and have an impact. And then predictability is the next phase on top of that, which takes it a step further, introducing models to the conversation, and based on the data sets and the information, trying to extrapolate out what's likely to happen next and be able to manage that ahead of time. And then finally moving into the optimization side of things and looking about, how can I do some what if analysis? If I did these 10 things, what's the result going to look like? And is that better for my business? So those last group are about looking forward. So the juxtaposition I'm trying to sort of talk to today is that we've got information from behind. We still need some of that. We've got real-time information that we really need to focus on, and we need to then have information that's letting us look forward for the business. So the question is, how do you set your business up to be able to do that effectively? So just jumping through about why this is important around businesses today need live and accurate information. So I'd ask you all, if you're sitting on this session today, go back and think, where do I not have that and how do I fix that? Because if you aren't, your competitors certainly are, but it's more than that. Is an expectation in the marketplace you service that you do have that. They're expecting your stocks at a fingerprint for a finger click. They're expecting you to understand what's going on. So it's not just for you, it's also for your market you service. It's all about faster decision making and being able to actually get events or information pop up in front of people that they can do things. So a couple of things there is that might be an alert coming up, but it also, I think about the dashboards and what they provide. Is I come in on a Monday morning, my dashboard comes up, and it is driving the conversation with me about, here are the 3-4 things you need to do now for your business around whatever it may be. So it could be an out of stock example. It could be I have invoices that are outside of certain terms. It could be whatever you like. But these things are now actually driving you. The system is telling you what you should focus on, rather than you going looking and determining what that is. So that makes it much faster to do. Obviously, I'm more empowered then. If you're, as a user or somebody that can actually play a role in the business at all different levels, if I've got the right information in front of me, I'm more likely to be able to do things like that. So again, I'm not all for, while executives and managers need reports and they need their dashboards, we want to empower the group as a whole. That drives drives collaboration and sharing of information. So one of the trends that I certainly have seen over the last few years that's really important is people just don't live in their silos anymore. If you're in logistics, you do actually want to have some visibility about certain things that are happening at the order point and so on. So the old days where, hey, that's not your problem, don't worry about it. We don't necessarily want them to drive a business that way, but we actually do want them to sort of be more involved in the conversation along the way. And we just find better outcomes for that. We need to incorporate data across the landscape. So one of the big things that certainly comes up is if you haven't got a consolidated solution, it's difficult to actually then report across your business. So we drive the conversation with good ERP systems that exist today, and there are also not so good ones, that we want you to try and consolidate as much of the data where you can. And if that's not reasonable, then look at middleware type solutions. And there's a lot of good ones now that can move data between systems. But ideally, you want a lot of this burden of reporting to actually sit in an ERP to let it be close to the ground of what's going on. And then moving into the next side, we have much better personalization. So these needs of I need to see my business my way is more logical. So we have ERPs that drop out of the box standard roles, and then what we expect people to do is they move that role around a bit to suit the way they want to consume information and so on, which leads to visualization. So it's the old story. I'll talk to this in a bit more depth in a while, but visualization is all about story tells 1,000 words as such. So we want to get as much information in front of somebody in a visual way that can allow them immediately to understand what the information is telling them, and then ideally what they should do about that. A couple of areas as well that are needed. So automation is a big one. So I've got one of those 4 sessions is on automation itself, and AI is starting to be introduced to the landscape. So we're seeing today that that's still evolving along, understanding how that works. But I think if anybody's gone on to ChatGPT and so on, you understand the power of I ask a question, I get a response, and how that's going to drive. So at the moment, we've seen a lot of ERP systems look at the textual side of that, present some information back to me, I can put into an email or whatever, but very fast, that's going to become a common standard. Predictive analysis is another big one. So people are focused on, and maybe this time at executive or manager layer, looking forward. So finally, for me, it drives competitive advantage. I don't usually like to say competitive advantage as a rule, but it comes back to that future fit. I just genuinely believe and passionate about if you're setting your business up to be future fit, and this is one of the cornerstones to that, having better current reporting, then you're going to get a better outcome. So it is a competitive advantage if your peers that you're competing with are not doing this. So let me take you through a bit of an analogy that I like, and apologies for everybody that's not gamers. I'm a bit of a gamer. I think this is a great way to look at the conversation about visualization, particularly, and what we need in the current world. So in front of you is an example of a game that most of us have probably played at some point. And Atari produced this back quite a while ago. So it was Space Invaders is a pretty simple concept. But what's important about this for our conversation today is on the left-hand side, you can see we've got some elements of information. It's pretty basic. We've got the 2 players and what their scores are. We've got the high score that we're trying to achieve. We can actually see how many lives we have, and this is maybe one of the earlier examples of infographics or having visualization, because they tell you again with pictures of 3 lives and so on. So for me, this is a great example of what standard and traditional reports could be as an analogy. It was fantastic for when this came out, and it met the lack of complexity around games that actually was there at the time, and it's all you needed to be blunt. But it wouldn't be enough today. If you've tried to find a current version of Space Invaders, I'm sure there's a lot more things that are available to you as such. But back when it was put together, it made sense. Put that against, for me, an example of one of the games my kids play. It's a war game. That's probably not important to the conversation. But I sat down and immediately, without knowing the game myself in any detail, picked up 22, and there's actually more again, bits of information that it's sharing with us. So this is my analogy about what visualization and current reporting needs are. It's not that I'm going to be looking at the 22 pieces of information in one go. It's that I've got an ability to look on this screen, see what's going on. So, from my point of view, the information bits are I can see the other players I'm playing with. I can collaborate with them by clicking on talking to them in the game. I can see how their health is going. I can see how my health is going. I can click on a map that will show me where I am in relation to the rest of the players in the game overall. There's a lot of information, but the point about this is not the game. The point about this is how quickly it puts information in front of you that you can make decisions from. And this is the real-time nature. And for me, the passion I have around this conversation is we want as much as possible to see our business in the same frame, to have visualizations or ways to understand where I'm tracking at the moment. My sales are down. And yes, we look over periods of time, but we also during the operational day need to be able to see this information. So this is what's fast becoming the standard, and systems out there today, good systems again, allow for this and support this. So I hope that makes some sense, Marie, as an analogy.
That's a great analogy, Rob. So there is really a need for people to get much more information from the world around them. So other than just financial report that's 2 weeks old.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's close this bit off with we talked earlier about the benefits. So let's just test how we went with our analogy around that. So this is why people need information. We have to change because we want live and accurate reporting. So clearly my game analogy has that. We want faster decision making. Now, these kids that are playing it, my kids are 15 and 12 without giving too much away. They kill me on these things now. Their brain just is tuned to think differently. But interesting enough, their expectations of how information is presented to them is much higher than mine. And they're entering the workforce in the next phase, and they're going to be a problem for organisations that aren't set up to work that way as such. But, they're empowered, the people playing this game. Obviously, they collaborate. As I said, you can talk to them at the same time. You can see where your other players are at. You can see where they are on the map. You can see them in front of you as such. Certainly, it's got all the data across the game presented in a nice, consumable way. And finally, visualization. I hope anybody would disagree that it's a very visual way to see where they're tracking at that point in time. I could probably have gone through and ticked off a few more here as such, but I actually think that makes the point I was looking to make from a visualization point of view. So let's go into that a little bit deep, because I'm not suggesting you build a HUD in your computer systems at work and so on to show you what's going on like a game. What I am saying is that just recognize through the analogy that visualization is really important. People consume data like that as a standard nowadays. So data visualization is a graphical representation of what's going on in your business, allowing us to uncover insights that are there and patterns and trends to actually make decisions upon. So the point is that they're not always obvious when you're looking at a table of information. You have to work for them and so on. So data visualization is actually making that work happen for you, putting it in front of you and allowing you to make decisions. You still have to make the decisions, although AI may be coming towards suggestions around that space. So it's a very visual concept. So it's a mix of graphs and graphics, etc. It could even be photos, if that made sense, like delivery of goods and so on. And the idea is to get very complex information across in a very accessible way. I hope that makes some sense, Marie, because it's certainly where I'm heading. So I didn't want to today put up an example and run you through a demo or anything like that, because that's not what I'm about, what I'm doing. But I did want to show you some examples of various dashboards. And look, we're all going to have different ones that we like better than others. So the top two are ERP systems, two different ones that have these things built in. Now, I really want to impress this upon you. Personally, that's where I believe a lot of the heavy lifting should happen, in the operational solutions that are actually getting the masses of data and allowing you to do things. It's not about visualizing how I went last month, although that's certainly one of the benefits. It really is about visualizing and seeing the business on the fly and being able to take appropriate actions and steps. The right-hand bottom, I've left one in there for a BI solution, and many of you may well have looked at things that will have those in place today. That can also be adapted. But even in that space, more and more ERPs are looking to bring in widgets from things like Power BI and bring that data in, or have a close connection through OData, being able to seamlessly get the information in or out. You still need to set your world up, but there's all sorts of different ways that you can put it together. The one thing I would suggest as a watch out for, sexy is not best. And I think there's a confusion in my experience around software companies that having an experience for a user is all about the sexy side of things. There's an element to that. There's no doubt. But actually, what we find is users that use systems over a number of months tend to want, yes, it looks nice, but it actually has to be useful. I don't need to think about how do I work with it and so on. And sexy doesn't always give you that. So if I think about external BI solutions and why I say that, they certainly own the sexy looks, but they don't necessarily have all the drillability or the ability to look at the wholesale data and consume it and then be able to push you back information in a usable way. You sort of have to really structure your thinking. We're moving to a world where unstructured data is going to be a really big player there. Does that all make some sense, Marie?
That's true, Rob. So by the way, Rob, your dashboard make my Excel-based report look pretty old school. You're about to tell me it's even get better, right?
Well, I hope so. So let's talk about what the dashboards actually then allow you to do. And just let me just say, I'm not a person that kills off Excel in there. There are reasons why organizations might look for Excel. I don't believe, though, it should be your prime reporting world, because even though we can introduce graphics and so on, it's difficult to manage in comparison. Now, there are solutions that sit across Excel, obviously, and that they may be viable. For me, it's all about going back to this self-reporting concept or self-service reporting concept. So this is the bit for me, right? So you've got the dashboards that pop up in front of people, but what we want is we want to empower more people in the organization to be able to play a role in the success of the organization. So as a person that's maybe down on the floor in the warehouse, I might be responsible for the picking team, etc. Having the ability to go and actually look at my own report, see whether it's a dashboard or a report within a dashboard, extract my insights and make decisions on the floor on the day, it is empowering. One, you get better results. If people can look at, I've got an out of stock, or I need to move stock down from the top pallet layer down to the bottom for picking, or I've got a staging issue, and that it gives them an ability to actually move around and be agile around the problems that they face. And that's what business is about. In the operational world, it's actually about a number of problems that you need to solve to achieve whatever the goals are for that day, that shift, whatever it may be. So I think that's really important, and providing that independence. So systems today, good systems, good ERPs, focus on delivering this. So what we're also talking about, apart from empowering people, is that we get more data-driven decisions. So by having that self-service concept and be able to go and understand the data in front of me through visualization or even research and so on, it means actually we're making decisions on data. Now, for those that have warehouses and so on, if I walk down to most warehouses and said to a foreman or even some bloke picking some goods, asked him a question about something and he didn't have the data, he'll still tell me what's wrong with the company and what needs to be solved and so on. So what we're trying to do is empower them, providing them more information. And that drives efficiency. There's no two ways about it. If you can move the knowledge, the information sharing, the visualization, awareness, the events down to where those things are happening, there's faster decisions, as opposed to waiting for the next week when we look at an out of stock report, or for those organizations that are probably doing really good SOC meetings at the moment, they tend to still be weekly or fortnightly, where people from different functions get together and review what's coming on. Yes, we look forward and make some decisions, but it's a lot of review and what can we do about that sort of stuff. So to me, it's a really important thing. And the final thing on self-reporting is that ensures that we don't have to go to technical experts to actually do changes. So we want the reporting concept to allow them to move things around. I'll come to some structured conversations that are important for that later on. So, things that are important for self-service reporting is it needs to be user-friendly. So back to my point, not necessarily just sexy, but it needs to be something that's intuitive and they're comfortable in using. We need to break the silos down. If we're going to have self-service, we've got to give people access to more data. And that's a real challenge for some people, that we get into this conversation, but why do they need to have that? So I'm not saying you don't have security and you don't say, hey, John in warehouse can't see payroll. Absolutely. But I am saying trust your people and open up the data, because that's one of the things that I see go really wrong in putting these things in place. Is we had silos, we keep silos, and yet we somehow want people to make a difference to the organisation. We need to train and support the people so they're able to do the job and work with the tools. But again, these tools generally are more intuitive than they used to be. So the way I look at it is some of them are, if you've got pretty good Excel skills, you can do it. Others are, you don't even need that. You need to be on a URL somewhere, playing around with things in a web world and so on. It's there. Data governance is absolutely a must. So here's the thing for me. This does not work if you free it up like Excel and say to people, do what you want. That is not what we're talking about with self-service. What we're talking about is structuring your data into certain ways and elements, giving some real focus around being able to trust that data. So when people manipulate it, move things around, do a hierarchy on the fly, whatever it may do, it's based on standard that the company has set. So the best example I have of this, I tell this story a lot, so bear with me, but when I was a Goodman Fielder, I was charged with doing the BI focus across, at the time, 11 divisions. So, we had organisations like Uncle Toby's, Meadow Lee, and so on. And one of the things that it struggled with actually getting changed in the organisation is people used to want to know how retail business was going versus commercial. But Uncle Toby's would see it as a group of products. Meadow Lee might see it as a group of customers that they serviced, and yet one of the other divisions would see it as a different channel that they sold into. And then we'd sit in board meetings. I talk about how we're going. We talk about retail, and I'd say to the board, but everybody has a different view of what retail is. Of course, we need to fix that. After a few months of sitting in those meetings, we finally did something about it. But you can see the challenge. If you don't get the data in the same way underneath, people using it will not understand the nuances and we can make wrong decisions. So it's really important. And then finally, we need to have templates and best practices. So we don't just go freehold again. We give them some tools to actually be able to work with it. So why do we do all this? No waiting for reports from, so do it yourself concept. We don't need to have people from IT. And some people just employ a lot of people. So unless you're a big corporate, employing people doing reporting, for me, doesn't make a lot of sense. Faster decision making. So these guys that are doing their self-reporting are making decisions as they're doing the reporting. And then they're done. They don't need to do it again. They get on to the next problem to solve. Adaptability and change. So really critical here. Who do you think gets the first view that the business is evolving? That something in the market is changing. Yes, we have marketing people will tell you what's going on and so on, but sometimes it's at the road that people are seeing the signals and they're starting to move their reporting around those signals. So we might be talking about people are moving away from items with a lot of packaging, etc. Just choosing an example. So maybe there's an attribute against heavy packaged goods versus something that has less packaging. So that might be something that shows up in the logistics world, where we're seeing the orders we're picking for, in the warehouse world and so on. And obviously, as I've said a few times, increased user satisfaction, and then finally that drives productivity throughout the organisation as a whole. So I wanted now, Marie, just jump on to forecasting and predictive analysis. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this today. This is more about introducing the concept, but as a concept, forecasting is about looking forward based on the set of data you've got and making some decisions around what you're likely to do based on trends and future analysis and so on. So algorithms come into play here, that if we follow that same trend, I grew up in a world where I did a fair bit of demand forecasting for a food company. Funny how there's probably 50 algorithms to choose from, and we still chose best fit. For anybody on this session that grew up somewhere, we know why that's funny. So the system is using, and really importantly here, really well consolidated, constructed data, so lots of it, sometimes not as structured, to make decisions on it. So this is not just about, I need my forecast number for 2024. This is about what sort of resources do I need to think about building for that, whether that be people, food, or inventory items that I need to bring in as raw materials, or whether that's simply about, I haven't enough coverage for the leads that I'm expecting to see there. So using the system itself to be able to drive that conversation. And then that moves in the predictive side, which goes a step further. So it's not just about algorithms now, it's more about true modeling and working out what that's going to do, to inform my KPIs, my metrics that I need to do. The point around all of this to date has been data-driven. So what necessarily doesn't come through with standard reports is the data driving the conversation. What standard reports for me tend to do is they house data in a way that I expect to see it. And there's a really important difference there as we move into unstructured data, as we move into the Internet of Things conversation for those that are still on that journey, as we end up talking about more e-commerce and therefore more unique consumers that we're not used to understanding and so on. The data is the key to all of this. Hope that makes some sense again, Marie.
Absolutely, Rob. So I know that you have just discussed about forecasting, and I know my spreadsheets aren't up to, aren't quite up for forecasting. But I thought forecasting tools were something that only really big businesses got to play with, right?
Yeah. No, it's a fair question. I think I'll go through the benefits around this, but one of the things I'm certainly seeing today is that it's a normal evolution, that what big business had put all their effort and dollars into to actually devise, evolve and bring to the market starts coming down. So one of the really important things, and I've said a couple of times about good ERP solutions, that they have those things invested in them. So when we're talking about not needing an Excel solution, and there may be reasons you do, so I don't want to be anti-Excel, we're looking for forecasting to be part of the solution. So what we see going past just reporting, we see more organizations that are using their data to tell them things and make decisions. So even down to organizations that are fulfilling orders for customers and needing to have the right stock available, we can have the system work out we've run out of or got to a certain safety level or got to a certain economic buying quantity, automatically go and purchase those goods on our behalf without us touching it, and so on, or presenting us back a report that says, here are my suggestions, would you like to think of it? And therein lies the AI conversation coming forward, right? AI is going to change that space a bit. So let's touch on the benefits of what I think is going on here with modern reporting. So hopefully what's coming through the conversation is a clarity around it's accelerating actual insights. One of the major drivers here is not waiting to a point in time to see the weekly, monthly figures or even yesterday's operations, moving the conversation and the insights into what I'm doing today. So letting me do that. Now, you'll still have those other insights coming out over different time periods and so on, but we want to drive that we're closer to what's happening in the business and be able to action things as such. So the other thing is enhancing the decision making. So we don't just want a heap of alerts or a heap of graphics telling us something. We want them telling things that we can actually consider and make better decisions. So one of the things the visualization does actually do, presents things in a very consumable way. There's immediacy to, I know that's the problem I need to look at and get and do it. So you have to make enhanced decisions from my point of view. It's leading you the way. Now, you still have to be a human being. You still have to use your knowledge and background of whatever industry you're in or your experience and exposure to help with those decisions. But we're giving you the platform to make better decisions here. Inclusion of data from a wider range of sources. So this for me is pivotal. I meet people today that run solutions like Xero. They might have some other inventory solution sitting on the side of that and yet another solution sitting everywhere else. They have some integration points between those, but of course they're standard integration that's been built over time or when the project first happened. I can just guarantee you that they're not seeing their whole business as such. So if you think about, let's start with what do I want to visualize about my business? What do I want to see on a dashboard? And assume that all of that's in the same system. We need to have that. Now, there are ways to then move forward if there's logical reasons why you don't just have an inclusive system and you've got some add-ons that you need to work with. There's ways forward around bringing that information in to a much better way. So APIs are an obvious one. There's some middleware concepts that are there. It could be just a CSV load on a regular basis. But as soon as you do that, it's structured again. Whereas if it's in the one system, you have the ability to have unstructured data, just data that lives, and move that into your vision and do something with it. Greater user engagement, collaboration. I've touched this a few times. It's a no-brainer, right? If you're giving me something that I can understand my role better with, I can understand the problems I have to solve or the things that are, yep, you're on track, Rob, well done, I'm going to be happier. If you then give me the ability to move this around the way I think I should see the business, but again with standards and some governance around that, so it's not wrong. I like that. So here's an example in my life that I spent some time talking to Nestle a number of years ago about reporting. I think Nestle used to be the gold standard as a global organization that had a very strong reporting at the top level, exactly what's going on. But what they did was they allowed the countries to go and invest in their own reporting needs to see it the way that say, Australia needed to see their business. As long as they reported back to Nestle head office in the same way that Nestle head office worked, they allowed 2 languages. And the effect of that was really positive. And I was trying to do the same thing in my world at the time because it made a difference. And then finally, the reason you do all this is it tells a fuller story. This is what we're about. It's about storytelling. It's not about cold reports that you've got in there. We want more people to understand where we're at so they can make decisions. So having more current reporting solutions, whether that's visualization or other things as a whole, it just gives you more of the story of what's going on in your business. So what are the challenges then that I think you need to be aware of? So one, you have to think about the right KPIs and metrics up front. So we talked about earlier in one of the other sessions I ran, and great, you got KPIs, but you need to actually make sure they're the ones that are going to impact your strategy. They should relate to that, and the metrics that measure that. How are you going along the path to where you think you need to be, and so on. So that's a really important thing. Personalization and standardize. There's a bit of a juxtaposition here that yes, you want to personalize or allow me to personalize what I see, but you absolutely still want me to have standards in the organization. So there's a bit of a trick and a sleight of hand here with people think they're doing whatever they want, but actually they're doing it with the data. We need to drive that. Collaboration versus noise is a consideration. This is not telling you to go and drive collaboration and share every piece of information with everybody. You'll drive them nuts. And internally in my business, I often check, hey, am I getting that now just as noise? Is that actually letting me do something? So really important you empower your teams to actually put their hand up and say, am I getting use out of that, or is that just noise? And then the data volumes versus collection strategies. Get used to it. More data is going to be going out, and it's going to keep exponentially growing, and you want to do something with that. So, we need to make sure we match our strategies around collecting that data wherever it is in some sort of fashion. But I do want to underline what I've said a couple of times. We're moving more to unstructured data, and that's where this visualization, the newer style of reporting is about living and dealing with unstructured data. And then finally, you need the right systems and processes. So obviously, I've got a big passion for good ERPs, and there are still bad ones out there. Really are what you need to be driving into business as a foundation, because it's going to help you get things better and clearer. So I won't read through all of these, but there's a few watch outs. So these are the things I hear traveling around from people. I can do that in Excel, yes, but I'm not sure that's the home for everything. We all need those reports. Okay, well, hold on. Can we actually do every now and then a check and balance? Because we all know we've got so many reports and some of them have lost their use. Sometimes our reports are because somebody that was a CFO maybe 3 years ago that's moved on after a year, demanded this, and then the new CFO doesn't even look at it. Let's do those checks. So I'll leave you to read that given our time, but there's a few things that are worthwhile just checking whether they're what you hear. As such, I think I jumped ahead one, Marie. So I hope that makes all sense.
Yeah, of course. That's actually, I get it, Rob. So I keep actually hearing from people telling me that they can do it in Excel, but they can't really. So I think it's time to tell us all about the steps involved in transforming our businesses away from old school reports.
Okay. So I just want to pick up the word away from. Obviously, I'm saying as well as, but what that actually means is you're right, that there are some reports we want to move away from, that they don't add value, but there are others that will always be there, because we're certainly not driving there are no standard reports. We're saying you need more. They just don't cut it by themselves anymore. So it's hard to tell you the steps in this conversation because there's a lot of people on this session that come from different industries. So I thought I'd just give a few indicators from my point of view. One, define clear objectives. No surprise there. Anybody that's been through change understands that up front. So we need to be clear about what we're doing. we need to have the right systems that underlay this. This is when you're talking about data, this is a system conversation at the end as such. So I've already played my hand. I believe the ERPs that I work with are great for this nowadays and take on more of that burden, but they're not everything. There's still other things that need to work with them. Identify the key metrics and KPIs. I'm just hot on this because I can tell you quite happily that some of my systems come with pre-built KPIs. Excellent, great. But you still need to make sure that I've understood these are the 7 things that are going to drive my business aligned to the strategy. And yes, those KPIs are there, and I have to do some work on the 7th one or whatever it may be. But there's no point doing everything if you haven't got the business alignment to the strategy over the next coming years. Establish good data governance. So I've said this a few times that you need to get your data right. We can't go to self-service, really good visualization and not have some standards around what we do with the governance of data, where we get that data from and how it works for us. Even unstructured data needs to come back in a governed way as such. And I think, those that get that right will get more power from AI as it becomes a standard moving forward. And then finally, ensure clarity and accessibility. This is a journey. So what I see fail here a lot is people go, that's excellent, I'm going to put in a data visualization solution, or even I've moved to a new ERP, Rob, thanks so much, it does the job we want. And then they've left all the silos in place. And I sit there and I go, okay, so that person there has only got this view of the business. Why does it matter whether they see the number of orders that were taken yesterday? You know what I mean? So I think that's really important to make the information accessible to those people. And even if you're thinking, well, why would they ever want it? There's an element here of sharing company knowledge across and empowering people to know where you're at with things and so on. So I hope that makes some sense.
Definitely.
So I think, Marie, it's back over to you for managing our question and answer time. I can't see my clock, so I hope I didn't do too badly.
Of course not. All right, Rob. So, but before we get to those questions, for those who have just tuned in, if you got questions, please feel free to pop them through our chat window or to our Q&A box. So, and we thank you for the audience who have sent their questions earlier. So I know that you're all excited to hear the answers to your questions. So let's get started. So, Rob, we have here your first question is, this goes, my question around having the right balance between real-time data and the long-term trends, since more real-time data we have, the more noise we are going to lose the view on the big picture.
Yeah.
How we deal with the balance?
That's a great question. Thank you for that. So balance is a really key thing to the conversation all up. So firstly, what I'd say is that the real-time nature of what you want to understand about the business. So I'm thinking more about we're structuring some dashboards to present information in a real-time sense, should align to your overall strategy. So go back to my points a second ago. That's actually one of the key things for me. We're not doing it for the sake of it, but so we want to actually align. So if you're an organization, and every organization is different as such, or different industries, that has a lot of focus on getting stock out the door on a Friday by 3 o'clock, the cutoff time, etc. Real time is really imperative around the operational nature there. Having real-time information that is building about new quotes that are in the system and giving that to, say, a guy in the warehouse makes no sense. So we do need to look at noise and how we do that. I would argue, by the way, that maybe it's not a bad thing that the supervisor of the warehouse or the manager has visibility of the quotes that are out there and learns to deal with that. You absolutely do need to have that looking forward. But I think this gets to the core conversation around setting the strategy is the board's job, and then working with the executives. It doesn't matter what size of organisation we're talking about. If you're somebody that owns your own business, you still set the strategy. That's the strategy. The executive then are empowered to actually work to that strategy and put things in place, and then you come down the layer. So I think you have to get that balance absolutely right, and I'm happy to have further discussions around things there. I would, though, say it's careful not to close down because I don't want noise, the opportunity for people to evolve and learn with real-time information. So one of the value propositions behind self-service is people, uncover better ways to look at your business than you thought of before. or they're finding trends that haven't been seen before. So we want to get that balance right, but we also, it's like everything. I'd rather get the balance wrong a little bit, empowering some people to look at the business in a different way than closing down the people looking at it that way, if that makes sense. But again, Maria, happy if that person wants to have a chat later on.
Definitely. Thank you, Rob. So that's very well said. And I must say, in this very fast-paced world, I agree that the real-time reporting is really important. So moving on, we do actually have a few more questions here. So Rob, our second question goes, are visualizations really going to make my business better?
Yes. Do I have to go into why? No, absolutely. And if you think about visualizations in big world, hopefully my analogy wasn't too silly and made sense in playing games. But another analogy I almost chose is for anybody that deals with not-for-profit organizations as such, and the way that they now do their annual reports and visualize that through infographics. And they're not alone, but they seem to be, for me, very good at it. I'm, the ones that I work with a company called Act for Peace, who I love their challenge in looking after refugees and so on. It just makes it so easy to open up that annual report, look at what's going on, and get hit in the face with clarity around what they've been doing, how many campaigns they've run, how many refugees they've helped, where are they helping refugees, what part of the world. And if you bring that back into a business, that's what visualization is about, giving you immediacy, clarity around what's going on to be able to make better decisions. So I would go a step further and say, will it really help? And go the opposite. If you're not investing in this space in some fashion, and I'm not talking thousands and thousands of ridiculous dollars, other people are, and they're getting the advantage, and you're getting left behind. I'm fairly pragmatic with my views, but visualizing your business is a differentiator, and not everybody is doing it. That's why I'm holding this session.
That's really good to know, Rob. So we have an audience coming from the finance. So the question that we have here is, my finance team have spent a small fortune on software that is supposed to do most of this stuff to do their Excel spreadsheets. So have they done the wrong thing?
No, look, without knowing all the reality behind your question here, I wouldn't say the wrong thing. That's too judgmental. But what I would certainly say is Excel's not the answer for everything. There are some good tools, and I partner with a couple of really good tools in the Excel world that overlay, but that they run as a proper solution using data. But again, they're constructed. They tend to not do well with data in different elements. So I'm not sitting here saying you never have those, but what I absolutely am saying that Excel has it's not crept into business, been there for ages in many cases, but it has such a strength there because people feel very comfortable going and putting information in it and doing various things. But it's not as tight as having visualization or modern reports set up in your system. So if you just think about some basic reporting, we'll step out of just visualization and dashboards and so on. If we've got unstructured data and then we've got reports that run across that unstructured data and tell us things that we didn't know, but we have the ability to effectively mine that information, that's much better than sitting out in Excel, where we tend to structure those reports. And yes, we might set them up, and some of the tools that sit on Excel allow you to have new accounts from a finance point of view come in and just slot in naturally. That's great. But they tend to be led by the structure. Now, it may be in this person's case that you have both. I'm not saying kill off the Excel bit. I'm saying that there's some stuff to do. What Excel does, though, is still fairly backward looking. Even if you've got real-time information, the concept is looking back. What we're trying to get to is the right balance, back to that person's question earlier, where we can actually see things in real time, act on them, and it's almost not reporting anymore. It's event-driven situations and so on. So somewhere in the middle is the answer. But again, happy to have a chat with that person, Marie.
Thank you, Rob. So to our audience, thank you for sending your questions. And I think we have still another few questions coming in. So we have here, I know that you have touched on reporting. So there's a question that says, what is automated reporting?
Oh, okay. All right. So automated reporting takes a few different forms from what I've seen in organizations and help them with. So first of all, that can be as simple as automatic publishing. So there's a report that you've set up. You can go into a computer system, an ERP, and run that report, get a result. We can automate that and schedule that. And so it'll actually go away and run that report maybe 2 a.m. in the morning and publish that out to various people. So that's one type of automated reporting. I think automated reporting also includes giving you a result in a dashboard where you might want to see, in this case, a snapshot rather than a real-time view of the world. So we can automate that to do things. But for me, and maybe I'm not using the best example of the words, I go a step further and think of my business events or my alerts as being automated. So automation, and we touched on this in another series, is really being able to take the easy stuff or the logical stuff away from the business and make that more efficient. So where we might have had a purchasing report run, work out what my stock issues are, manually go and create some purchase orders, we can also automate all that. Now whether you should or not would depend on your business. Some businesses, it makes no sense to intervene. Just punch out the purchase orders, have your suppliers respond, and you don't need to do anything apart from pay a bill based on a purchase order. Other businesses are going, well, hang on, I want to make sure we don't end up with too much stock in my small warehouse, and I need to go through it. So there's a bit more into the automation conversation and automated reporting. But for me, I think that talks to the fundamental we're trying to get to with current reporting techniques is not have to go and prepare it, not have to put effort into getting information in front of you, having all that automated in the system. I'll add one last thing to that, Marie, it always amazes me. One of the questions I ask in discovery mode when I'm talking to businesses that have tapped me on the shoulder and said, Rob, we want to go forward and do things a bit differently. And I talk about, well, Excel is probably not the best vehicle to go forward. Let's do this. I actually ask the person, do you love putting reports together in Excel? Like, do you actually gain value as to who you are as a person? And it might sound stupid, but often they actually sit back in their haunches a bit and go, yeah, actually, I like Excel, right? So we need to compete with that some people, maybe not CFOs and so on, but different people within organizations, financial controllers, enjoy that part of the job. So we've got to find a way to change the preparation has less value than the ability to read the data and read the insights and make decisions on it, because we need to turn it up and put that effort into analyzing the information, make decisions rather than preparation. Hope that makes sense again.
Definitely. So thank you for that, another insightful message. And thank you for answering that question. Based on my personal opinion, of course, Excel spreadsheet is quite, it's really quite difficult. But of course, we're looking at innovation nowadays. So, and also there's another question here that I'd like to read. And I think you have touched on AI earlier. So the question goes, what use do I really have for including AI in my reports?
Yeah. So I would be looking like a liar if I told you I knew everything about AI and exactly where it's going. Even the AI experts can give you views, but it's not, hopefully we're not going to Terminator 2 and all dying in a few years. But I think from a business point of view, it really opens up some great opportunities. So what I'm seeing today is some of my ERPs I work with have immediately introduced, for example, a text AI conversation where putting together well-worded Dunning letters or whatever else, there's inbuilt AI in the system that can allow you to get the right set of words and so on, and obviously pre-fill it with some of the data that needs. So that text AI concept is already in place today. But what AI, I think, will really bring to this conversation is the ability to work with immense amount of unstructured data, read the trends, apply algorithms that I can't understand in an AI world, but make sense obviously today, and then be able to present that back to you as earlier information in the process, better information that's more aligned. Not perfect. It's never, when you get things to work on and consider, they're not always perfect. But I think AI is really going to step up this role. I think it's also going to go to the next level of being able to present reports, dashboards, alerts, suggestions So I've been looking at your business, Me AI, and here's what I think you need to be doing. So suggestions from AI will be an immense part of it. I think there's another part to AI that's maybe further ahead than just reporting, where if you think about what AI lives and breathes on is global information. That's they've spent time testing the good ones that are out there now in the place, and they're amazing what they can do. Some of the ERP world that we deal with specifically have thousands and thousands of customers. I'm really interested to see what AI looks like when they go through that data set in a normalized way. So we don't break anybody's privileges. And see what they can do with that immense amount of data. So I think one day we could be sitting in a world where we punch into the system. I have this problem. What is best to do about it? And the system, based on correlation of others that have introduced solutions, is able to give you some suggestions. So I don't know. Look, again, I want to be careful and know all about AI, but what I do know is it's going to be a foundation moving forward of what reporting will be. It's just we just got to watch that space for a little while longer. Again, with that person, I'm happy to have more conversations in a bit deeper, meaningful way.
That's great, Rob. Something to really look forward about reporting in AI. So I think we have reached our end of our Q&A session. So thank you, everyone, for your active participation in our Q&A session. We really appreciate your thoughtful question and Rob's insightful responses. So while we couldn't address all those questions during the live session, we will make sure that we'll follow up those questions we didn't cover. So like Rob said, I'll be happy to arrange a one-on-one consultation or a one-on-one meeting with you guys. Rob will be compiling the remaining questions and providing detailed answer in our upcoming content pieces or through personalized emails. So we hope you have enjoyed this webinar on navigating the digital landscape, a paradigm shift in business reporting. And we are confident that the insight that we have shared today will be valuable in guiding your organization adaptation of automation technologies and achieving your business goals. So for those actually who missed the webinar or want to revisit the discussion, we'll be sending out our recording link via email. And additionally, we're always open to further discussion. And like Rob mentioned earlier, he'll be happy to connect with you in a one-on-one to address specific questions or concerns that you might have. So, Rob, any last announcement or message for our audience?
No, but I would highly recommend go back and have a look at the other 4 sessions. If this is resonating with you about where your business needs to be and you share my passion for being a future fit business, please do go back and have a look at those as well if you haven't.
Thanks, Rob. So thank you again to our audience, and we hope that you actually have a productive and successful journey in implementing business automation strategies. So I hope you enjoyed your day. Bye for now.
Thanks, Maria.